Hello, my name is Mark. In this video, I'm going to take you through the step-by-step procedures of making a wonderful artisan bread. It is a recipe that my wife got me from one of her friends about 8 years ago. I've been making it quite often since then, and what I've done is I've simplified some of the process to go ahead and make it. The ingredients are pretty much the same, but I can kind of go through and show you where you can make some changes. So the first thing you'll need is 3 cups of flour, and I just use all-purpose white flour, and you can just kind of scoop out 3 cups. Doesn't have to be exact. We'll go ahead and adjust the water amount at the end there. So 3 cups of flour and salt. We'll go ahead and add about 1 1/4 to 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt, depending on your preference. I like about 1 1/2 myself, especially if we're going to use it for any kind of sandwiches like pastrami or corned beef, where it's a little bit more of a salty meat. If I'm going to put like a salt topping on top of the bread, I'll kind of cut back on the salt amount a little bit. And then we'll need yeast. For this recipe, for 3 cups, we'll use a 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. Just throw that right in there. And then the water, we use about 1 1/2 to 1 5/8. This one is 1 5/8. I'll go ahead and pour that in, and I'll go ahead and start mixing. What you want to use is a stainless steel container, or you can go ahead and use a ceramic bowl. But this particular bowl works well because it comes with a snap-on lid, so that's what you're going to need while the bread rises. The bread itself will rise somewhere between 12 to 18 hours, and in the meantime, you really don't have to do anything. So I'll go ahead and mix it, and I prefer to use a silicone spatula. Makes it easy for cleanup, and it's just ready to go for the next stage. So you can kind of see I'm working that flour off the edge and mixing that together. Now this particular dough is going to be very tacky or sticky when it's thoroughly mixed. You can kind of see right now this one's becoming kind of stiff, almost a little too stiff. So what I'm going to do is probably add maybe a 1/2 teaspoon more, or actually a teaspoon of water, just to kind of give it a little bit of tackiness to it. Yeah, there we go. Get the edges cleaned off, and then you can kind of get an idea of the consistency of the dough. So it's something you don't want to get your hands into because it will definitely stick to you. And that's it. We'll go ahead and get that dough off of there. Take the lid, put it on top, and then we'll just set it aside. It's going to be set at room temperature, which is about 70 degrees in here right now, and it'll sit for anywhere from 12 to say 18 hours. Now that we've allowed about 14 hours to go by and allowed the dough to rise, you can see it's nice and airy, still nice and gooey. And what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and knead it just for a little bit. Don't have to do it a lot, just basically knock some of the air out of it. Don't have to do any more than that. So we've got the dough is very sticky. Put the lid back on and wait for another 2 hours before we start baking. While that's rising for the next 2 hours, you're going to have to decide on the type of cookware you're going to need to go ahead and cook the bread in. For a single batch recipe bread, I use this cast iron pot. Cast iron works really well. You got to have a lid that goes on it for the first half hour of cooking. They have a variety of kind of different sizes that I've tried out, and kind of give you an idea of which ones work out better or worse. This is something that you can buy at the store. It is for bread baking, and it's a clay pot with a lid. With this particular recipe, it works fairly well. One thing that's a little bit tricky is since it is so shallow on the pan side, the dough tends to be a little bit more on the runny side. So once you're putting the dough in, you got to quickly get the lid on before it starts kind of creeping over the edges. This one here would do a double batch with 6 cups of flour. I've also tried this Pyrex casserole dish, and this one works really well. You can see it's got a little bit higher sides and a little bit smaller. A double batch fits in here perfectly. It gives you a nice shape to the bread itself when it's finished, and works well for making sandwiches. Since the dough is a little bit more on the runny side, I put it in this flat bakeware. I've spread it out, I put different toppings on it, and it kind of makes for a nice roll, when you go ahead and slice it in different ways. A variety of different size batches you can use. And then when I have big parties, sometimes I pull out this guy, and this is a larger casserole dish. And this one here will do a triple batch. And I'll just go ahead and use the cover to go ahead and hold the dough itself, and then use this as the lid to go ahead and cover it for that first half hour of cooking. About a half hour before the dough is ready, it's been about an hour and a half right now, I'm going to go ahead and take the pot, I'm going to put it in the oven, I'm going to set it at 450 degrees Fahrenheit, and then in a half hour we'll go ahead and take the pot out of the oven and then add the dough to it. Okay, the next step is going to transfer the dough into the hot pan. I take it out of the oven that was set for 450 degrees. It's been in there for a little over a half hour. Just be careful at this point because it's as you can see, it's super hot. What I'm going to do is there's no hurry to do anything here, so it's like take your time. But one thing you definitely want to do is you're going to want to put flour on inside the pan, and on the dough a little bit here. It's like already starting to rise again. So put a little flour. Don't be shy. And I also showed I've used cornmeal, which is really nice on it. And then I've also used this polenta flour, which is just ground cornmeal, just a little finer coarse. We'll go ahead and take the silicone spatula, and we'll just kind of work that dough out of the bowl. Let it drop right on in. You can see you don't have to do anything special. Maybe put a little more flour right on top, like that. The lid back on, and you're going to want to put it back in the oven at 450 degrees, and you're going to want to set the timer for about a half hour for a small loaf like this. And after that half hour, we're going to go ahead and just remove the lid, and then we're going to keep it in the oven. Probably about another 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how you like the crust. I like it nice golden brown, not quite burnt, but really crispy. After a half hour, take the lid off, leave it in the oven, and then probably another 10-15 minutes. Let it get nice and golden brown, and then we'll pull back out. Well, it's been about another 10 minutes since I took the lid off the bread. Let's go ahead and check how it looks. Oh yeah, it's ready to go. Wow, look at that. You can see the crust is nice and dark, just the way I like it. And let's go ahead and get that out of there. Sometimes it takes a little effort. This one looks pretty good. Yeah, a little stuck on the bottom, but that's okay. Probably if I would have put a little more flour on the bottom, it wouldn't have done that. But look at how nice that is. Give it like probably about a half hour to go ahead and cool down, and then you can go ahead and slice it up. It's going to taste fantastic. Thank you.